Your
yesterday.
power,
Nothing like a Zoom meeting during a vacation.
Yeah,
did your
Well, good
power
morning,
blink
everyone.
out earlier, Cole?
it did. Yeah.
Yeah, it took our power plant down even.
Oh, wow.
Good morning,
Before-
everyone. We are starting our meeting. We're streaming live now. We've got everyone sort of catching up with each other as folks have been logging in for the last few minutes. So thanks for joining us this morning for what is to be our last meeting in reviewing the document and getting through and approving the content. Welcome to all council members and the support team and to the public. And for those joining us live via the YouTube stream, you can find the agenda on the FWP Council website, along with the document that is most up to date, dated August 14th, that we'll also be doing a screen share with, though it might be easier to follow if you've also got the PDF copy in front of you. So again, the agenda and the document that we will be reviewing today is on the FWP Council website. So what we'll be doing this morning is take you through the agenda for the meeting. We'll do some introductions here of council members momentarily. And really we'll spend about the first hour 15 going through the red content that's in the document. That's the content that we haven't approved yet. The content in black has been approved. So we won't be going through that. There's been a couple of suggested edits in the comments. Some of the more copy editing things, the writing team will take care of. And we'll have the writing team share their process since the last two weeks in terms of how they've gotten to where they are today. That writing team, along with another subgroup writing team that was involved in reframing and reformatting the considerations for and opposing hunting. We'll talk about their process. And then we'll just make sure that there's approval for the overall structure of the document and see if there are any other pieces that, now that we've gone through the content, if there's anything else that structure-wise people have comments about. What we'll then need to spend a pretty good hour 15, maybe more if we've got it, is talking about next steps. Again, we had sent out an email asking you guys to hold the date of September 1st. That date is now confirmed. So we'll talk about that handoff meeting with the governor on September 1st, what that's going to look like, talk about roles, presentation, talking points, etc. So we really need to make sure that we dedicate a good solid amount of time for talking about the agenda and purpose and roles for that meeting, along with what else you want to do in terms of getting your recommendations and input out there throughout the state of Montana. So we've got a full agenda ahead of us this morning. So we'll go ahead and get started. Again, welcome to everyone. We don't have a particular time on our agenda for public input, given that we've had quite extensive public input since the beginning. And right now, as I mentioned, today is really to approve the final content in the document. Dylan will be monitoring the public comment portal. So if public has a question or a comment about our discussion, he's going to try to answer those questions. And if he's not able, he'll interject when he feels it's timely or appropriate to see if we can respond to that. So we'll do our best to try and respond to those comments that are coming in. My name is Heather Stokes. I'm co-facilitator of this council, along with my colleague Sean Johnson. We're with the Center for Natural Resources and Environmental Policy at the University of Montana. And we'll go through as we normally do in terms of introductions alphabetically. Annie Shusky will be joining us at 11. She started school this week. She's the kindergarten teacher, so she needed to be at school for meetings, but she'll be trying to join us here at 11 o'clock this morning. She's based up in East Glacier. Brett?
Yeah, Brett Barney, the wildlife manager for Sunlight Ranch in Wyola and over in Red Lodge.
Thanks, Brett. And Caroline Bird is not able to join us this morning. She's based in Bozeman. She's a conservation consultant and the former executive director of the Greater Yellowstone Coalition. And Chad Bauer is also not able to join us this morning. He's based in Missoula and a market manager for public services. Chuck?
I'm Chuck Rohde, Columbia Falls. I manage F.H. Stoltz Land and Lumber Company.
Thanks, Chuck. Cole?
Hi, Cole Mannix. Live in Helena, and I'm part of a family that ranches up in the Blackfoot Valley, Western Montana.
Thanks, Cole. Aaron?
Hi, Erin Edge out of Missoula. I work for a conservation organization, Defenders of Wildlife.
Greg? Greg, can you hear us? I can see you.
Okay, I didn't hear very well. Greg Schock, I'm up here in the heart of the Mission Valley on the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribe Reservation, a farmer rancher.
Thanks, Greg. Heath?
Yeah, good morning. My name's Heath Martinell. My family ranches in Southwest Montana, and good to be here this morning. Thanks.
Thanks, Heath. Cameron?
Yeah, good morning, Cameron Kelsey, family owned and operates.
Can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Pretty low.
Not sure. How do I turn up the volume? Can you hear me?
That's a little better.
A little better? All right. Well, anyway, my name's Cameron Kelsey. My family owns and operates a guest ranch in Southwest Montana.
Thanks, Cameron. Kristen Kipp is not able to join us this morning. She's based in Browning and a member of the Blackfeet tribe and rancher. Lawrence?
Yeah, I'm Lawrence Grossfield. I'm a cattle rancher in the Big Timber area.
Thanks, Lawrence. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle Dietrich, and I live in Hamilton, Montana. And I'm very happy to be here, and it's been a great journey.
Thanks, Michelle. Nick?
Hi, never mind the creepy lighting there. I'm Nick GBAC, and I work for the Montana Wildlife Federation, and I'm based here in Helena.
Thanks, Nick. Robin?
Hello, Robin King. I live in Yak, Montana.
Thanks, Robin. Trina?
Hi, I'm Trina Jo Bradley. My family and I ranch in northeast-west Montana.
Thanks, Trina. And then Darren Boss will be joining us momentarily. I skipped over him in the event that he would be here by now. He said he'd be here by about 9:15, 9:30, and he's based in Havre and works with Montana State University. So he'll be joining us here shortly. So what we'll just jump right into, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. So if you're not talking, if you can please put yourself on mute, that would be helpful. So what we'll do is we'll jump into the document, and what I'll ask is for the writing team consisted of Trina and Annie and Aaron and Darren and Jonathan. If one of you wanted to give an update of sort of how you've gotten to where you are now from the last 2 weeks, just to kind of give the public and the council a sense of that process. And then we can have you, Trina, share your screen and we'll just jump right into the content. So who from the writing team wants to give a brief update?
Do you want me to share it right now or after the update?
After the update.
Okay.
Yeah.
John,
Yeah, I just am getting up and running here.
And
Jonathan,
Bill,
do you want to?
yourself?
Sure, I can jump in a little bit. Over the past couple of weeks, well, since the last meeting, Trina, Annie, and I had worked on incorporating the major edits and conversations that we as a council had had in Helena when we were all together, and got quite a bit done on that rendition. And after the last Zoom meeting, there continued to be, I'd say, maybe a half dozen topics or specific recommendations that we had kind of felt all along were going to need some more attention. And to get those going, Aaron and Darren joined in on the writing team to really help get some just fresh perspective into those issues. I think Trina and Annie been through so many different iterations of those that it was getting difficult for us to wrap our heads around it in a new creative way. So when Aaron and Darren came on board, it really helped to just get a nice breath of fresh air into the discussions. And I think we really made some positive strides towards some good consensus throughout the rest of the council. In that time period over the past 2 weeks, everyone on the council is really active participants in working back and forth to make sure we had the wording right, make sure that we were getting these things going in the right direction to where we could reach some consensus on them. And in the end, I think that we've really come up with some pretty durable recommendations out of things that not long ago were really hard for us all to agree on. So it's been a really nice process that way. I think that today's discussion will shed a little bit more light on those things and hopefully just really provide like the final polish on some of those. So at least from my mind, thanks a lot to everyone on the council who made themselves available in evenings and weekends and last minutes and all of that to get this stuff done. And especially to Trina and Annie and Aaron and Darren for, being there to really put some time in to make sure that this had the whole council's voice behind it, and while maintaining some real actionable items within these recommendations. So I guess that's my take on it. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jonathan. Well said. Anyone else from the writing team wanna share? Well, again, to echo what Jonathan said, great job, you guys. Thank you for putting in so much time and effort and energy and for staying true to the council process and the council voice. So Trina, if you could go ahead and share your screen. Great. And do you want to take us through it?
I can. Do you just want to go through the red parts?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go down to guiding principles number 2 and 3.
I have a question about this. It might be easier. So Lawrence gave us a second suggestion on number 3.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you guys don't want me to just put that where he wants it for now, so that we can talk about it rather than trying to see it on the side in a comment.
That would be great. And if you could do the same thing with Michelle's suggestion in guiding principle 10, just so that it's there when we get there, that would be great.
And you're putting in his second suggestion. That's correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So guiding principles 2 and 3 really, from the discussion that we've had in previous meetings, sort of go together. So do you guys want to just talk about them together?
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I'm sorry, what was it that you wanted me to go ahead with here? I was trying to get the document open on another page here.
So if you want to provide some context for guiding principles 2 and 3 based on the discussions from our last couple of meetings and how you got to the wording here, just so that folks are clear about that process and how we got here.
Absolutely. At the Helena meeting, these two recommendations came out of kind of another really rough cut just idea that was thrown out, well, that I had thrown out, that I thought kind of captured a controversial conversation that was going on among all the council members about the distribution of bears throughout the state and the need to be realistic about how resources, both financial and community resources as well, are being allocated or supported throughout the state to best prepare communities for the presence of bears. And that initial recommendation, excuse me, both from myself, who threw it out there, it didn't really sit all that well with me, and also with a lot of council members and comments from the public. It was a little bit, it just wasn't there yet. And so we all kind of understood that there was some real functional and good ideas behind it, but that the way it was worded and really focused didn't actually get across the idea that we were striving towards. And so we had a lot of good conversations, took in a lot of that public comment that had come in about that. And through those conversations and input, we're able to kind of determine what it was that we were looking to say and what the implications of that might be. And so we split it up into these two different recommendations that kind of separate the two ideas between the balancing of resources with the continued expansion of grizzly bears and the need to support both public and private lands in that endeavor. And also in number 2, identifying those areas and making an effort towards building an understanding of what are the high priority areas that we're discussing, while still recognizing those areas that are likely to potentially have grizzly bear presence in the near future, but maybe aren't the first steps for resource allocation for these issues. So these are what we kind of came up with a lot of input from everyone. I don't know if they're 100% there yet, but I'd say they're getting quite a bit closer, and a good example of taking a pretty conflicting idea and through a lot of good work have come to something that we're all at least willing to step it off and work from at this point. So
thanks, Jonathan. And then what we've also in addition, and this would be the second sentence in number 3 that Lawrence has added, because Lawrence has really been engaged and passionate about wanting to make sure that resources are also available for landscapes outside of the connectivity areas, to make sure that there are strategies, both resources, personnel, conflict prevention, mitigation strategies, well ahead of grizzly bear expansion into unprepared areas. So that piece was added by Lawrence last night. Lawrence, is there anything else that you want to say about that? I know that this has been really important to you.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'd like to hear if people agree with that or not. I, as you mentioned, I am passionate about about this, and I think that this is worded this way. I think it works, and it's something that really doesn't appear anyplace else in the document, and I think it's important to be there. So that's my pitch.
Thanks, Lawrence. I know that you and Darren and the writing team worked really hard to come up with language that could reflect the discussion and also sit with the council as a whole. So what I'd like to try and do, and again, trying to get a thumbs up is really hard on video when we've got a shared screen. So what I would propose is, does the council want to accept, can we lump in guiding principle number 2 and 3? Is there anyone opposed to these 2 guiding principles? And if so, please speak up.
With the addition, right?
With the addition, so as it reads now on the screen.
Heather, I actually, this is Nick. I actually really like Lorent's addition. We've been saying this for a long time. I think this is a proactive acknowledgement that we want to get ahead of this. And I think it's very forward thinking. So
I would agree with that.
And Heather, I'd like, as someone that's in an unprepared area, I think it's a great addition. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thanks, everyone. So I haven't heard any opposed. So I'm going to take that as we have approved guiding principles 2 and 3.
Look at
Yeah.
us. go.
I just want to make sure we're good with, yeah, thank you, Trina, turning these black then and then checking off the comment box on the other side. I just want to make sure you guys, because as the writing team, if we can do that as we go through this, it'll be super helpful.
Great.
Exactly. So I am resolving all of these things as we go, unless somebody tells me not to and tell me not to do it before I do it.
Well,
Hey,
the one
Trina,
thing-
don't resolve the one from Caroline above. Yeah.
And the one thing that was just lost in that, that Darren had put in there is that we want to make sure, there's been some comments throughout around using ecosystems versus areas versus zones. So I don't think that that needs to necessarily be a discussion for today, but perhaps the writing team could, I sent an email to Hillary yesterday asking her to provide some clarity and guidance around terminology. And so I hope that she'll get back to you guys about how best to do that. So maybe we can look to the writing team can look to the support team for guidance on that.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. That's what I was going to bring up too. This is Darren. I've finally got on. Thanks.
Thanks, Darren.
Okay, so are we ready to go to 6?
Yep.
Okay. So number 6 was that floater that we had under several different headings and we just didn't know where to put it. So it finally landed in guiding principles because it does kind of just blanket everything. Don't shoot bears if you're not supposed to.
Anyone opposed to this? All right, we've got approval. And Jody just shared that Hillary's on leave, so she'll get back to us on that. So thanks, Jody.
All right, number 10.
With
This is
the addition.
Yeah, so Erin, you want to talk about this one?
Well, it was just in that comments above, is Michelle suggested an addition when she was talking to Lawrence via the comments. And so Michelle may want to talk about it, but that second sentence is an addition to what the writing team worked on. There was a bunch of different versions of social tolerance and playing with it. And as we discussed it, I think the reality of how variable social tolerance is across the landscape and even over time is sort of how this is how that sentence came together. This is our sort of our little David Bowie sentence.
Yeah, I added it because I was trying to incorporate some of Lawrence's thoughts and put it kind of in a spot that was more focused on social tolerance. I'm not married to it, but I think I'm striving to create that or cultivate social tolerance is an important part of being proactive. And Erin, can you put a space in front of the A? Thank you. So that was my point. He had thrown social tolerance into that other one, and I didn't think it really fit there. So I looked for a place for it to fit. And Lawrence, if this doesn't cover what you were thinking, then maybe it doesn't need to be there.
This is Lawrence. No, I like it. It reads well, and without that sentence there, all it says is that social tolerance is dynamic and different in different areas and all that. And I think this sentence addresses how, one of the ways anyway, that social tolerance, that we can get more social tolerance. So yeah, I like it right where it is.
Any opposed? Looks like we've got approval on guiding principle number 10. Great work, everybody. All of these additions have really been making this document even stronger. So I think this has been great.
This one isn't red, but what is this? Jonathan, is this something that needs to be talked about, number 17?
Looks to me that it was just providing some transparency around rewording.
Yeah, that was just some rewording to further stress the need of both public and private land support for this. And we didn't want to repeat those principles above, but also wanted to kind of reassert that importance there, and also the need for resources to be available to both public and private land managers. So it was just some rewording. We want to make sure people knew that was a little bit different.
Okay. Thanks, Jonathan. The next comment is really more about wording. Again, I think the writing team can take that into consideration when you guys go back through it.
This one.
Yeah, this one, I made a comment on this because I really think that it would be great to have like the GYE, because then the reference is actually referring to something, as in what are they doing in the GYE? So I just think it's important to have that in there, rather than not really reference what you're referencing, if that makes sense, or not giving anything to reference. So that was my thought on that. I just think it's more clear with like the GYE at the end of this.
Looks like they put that down in the footnote.
Right, but I feel like they put what the reference is to, but it doesn't really say it in the sentence what you're referencing, right? Like the GYE says, okay, we're referencing what they're doing in the GYE, but it doesn't say that here.
But I think it's covered the way it's written. And that way it's a nice, crisp, clean sentence.
Yeah, and when I see your point, I just think that it would be clearer to let people know what the reference is about. A citation usually is, it references to something in the sentence, and there's really nothing in the sentence that you're referencing. And so I feel really strongly about putting like the GYE in there just to be clear, so people say, oh, well, what are they doing in the GYE? Here's the reference or the citation.
So I guess I wonder if I don't just type like the GYE in here. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
And then I guess we just need to decide if everybody's okay with it.
About that is it doesn't look like we're providing access to grizzly bear mortality data. It sounds like we're referencing recovery zones like the GYE. Do you know what I'm saying? So what if we put the superscript 2 after data instead of zones, and then it would be a little clearer, I think.
And isn't this already being, I mean, when you get the annual report for the populations, isn't this already being done?
Yeah, but it's not timely. The USGS database is real time.
So
And
we've
so-
already approved this statement, and so I think that perhaps the writing team can look at how best to make sure that this reference is clear. But I'm not sure that we want
Heather,
to-
I think we need to resolve this. So,
Okay.
if we can just,
I've got a question because that's how all the footnotes are. So Michelle, is there a difference between this one and all the others? Because we've been using them mainly to provide specific examples that exist. You know, like in A5A above that, it's kind of referencing in the same way this one is.
Bring it down so I can see.
If we need to change everything, get rid of those, or if it's just this particular one that seems strange to
Can I
you.
see 5A? Thank you. So it's referencing specific reports. So in a way, I suppose having it after zones references to zones versus data. So it does work better after data or data. But yeah, I just want to make sure that it becomes timely in the rest of the areas where we have grizzly bears. Because it doesn't help people to find out at the end of the year what happened throughout the year. I mean, sometimes you can take action as things are happening if you have real-time information.
are you okay with it after data?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. And so Trina, can you just get the footnote back up? Because I think when you moved it, it deleted the footnote.
Oh,
You might just have to undo and then redo or something. Jonathan is the master of footnotes, so he can do.
I can try.
Jonathan, why don't you move the 2 and then I won't screw it up.
Let's see.
I think if you copy and paste, it might go.
You might even be able to drag and drop it.
What if we do this? Did it go?
I think it's, oh,
Well, where'd the 3 come from?
I don't know. Oh, there you go.
Too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
Okay.
Is that racist, Heather?
So it sounds like we've resolved this. Michelle?
Yeah, this works better for sure. I just wanted to be clear that what I think that what is happening now in the NCD and in the CYE and the connectivity zones isn't quite enough for the public or for people like organizations like People in Carnivores and other organizations that are working to work with conflict prevention. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think that timeliness is really important for them to start focusing on new areas. Or we have a problem here, let's see if we can get some more people in there. I think that's important. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay, I think I'm just still scrolling, and I think most of these things that were still in here are resolved now. So I'm just gonna keep going until I find something red. Oh, what's all this on public and state land, Jonathan? Is that something that needs to be talked about, or were you just explaining what you did?
We were just explaining the writing team process. I'm trying to remember.
This one we moved up because it was like singular. This one we couldn't put in a footnote because it was just too big. And so, and it was down below in the appendix in like a weird spot. And we didn't really want it down there anymore because it didn't fit, and it just fit better here. So this is all language we've talked about, except for number 6. And so we just moved it to here.
Okay, perfect. And same with 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've already approved those, right?
Yeah, in a previous meeting at some point, yeah.
Okay, and we don't.
So we need to look at number 6.
Periods. Okay, so number 6.
And Robin had a comment about this.
Let me just copy and paste that up real quick so we can see it. Whoa.
And this was something, I don't know if Robin's on there, but at least I had spoken with Robin about maybe this would be a good area to put a footnote after the proposed recreation activities and be able to list those specifics as examples in a footnote rather than up there in the recommendation.
I think that's a good idea.
Robin, do you want to share any thoughts about this?
Yes, thank you. Technology has failed me again. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I think Jonathan captured it really well. I chatted with the writing team about this, and if we could just add maybe to the end of that sentence, I'm trying to find my comment now as I can't see it. Okay, I'm getting better here. Trina, can you scroll up to my comment?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm good with if we could just footnote the examples for proposed recreational activities. And the reason I'm being a little bit of a stickler about it is because the bear specialist spoke to us in Missoula about these very specific pieces that they were concerned about going forward as recreation continues to develop in grizzly bear country. And so I think in consideration to their concerns, if we could footnote that, I'm fine with that. And then maybe if we could just add at the end of this sentence, move or reroute activities as determined by the analysis. And then I think that would better cover what we're looking at in number 6. Yep, thank you. That's what I'd like to see. Thank you.
So Jonathan, did you get your footnote established? Were you the one that was doing that?
I did. It's down there, so you can copy and paste that.
Okay.
Any further discussion on number 6? Any opposed to number 6?
I need to read it again without moving all over before we move forward on this, Robin or Heather.
Okay. Trina, can you scroll back up, please?
Yep. Jonathan, can you format that now that I moved it down there, please?
Yep.
Okay, so let me erase this sentence so it's less confusing. There we go.
I guess one thing that I just have I don't know that I have an issue with any of the wording that has to do with this. I just don't know that we should be, I don't like the idea of riding bicycles and running in grizzly bear, in areas where grizzly bears are known to exist. I just don't think that's something that we should be promoting, if that's what this is saying.
Brett, the way I understand it is this is saying FWP or whomever should analyze the situation and see if it's going to be safe for both people and grizzly bears before it happens. And if it is deemed not a great idea, then it's not going to happen. This is the opposite of promoting those recreational activities.
And I don't know that it won't it
Thank
says
you.
it does not going to happen. I think it says it could, there might have to make some edits to.
Right.
And just to
Right,
provide
right.
context,
And yeah,
it's under a larger heading. So it's under Fish Wildlife Park should coordinate with public land managers to develop plans to address the general and seasonal impacts to wildlife from recreational use and to prevent conflicts between grizzly bears and people on the landscape. So these are all
And Brett, I would also add, that's a great question. You know, we really need to be clear about how we're reading this. And that's what the bear managers were telling us, that there needs to be better coordination between all the relevant agencies before we get these activities into those areas where they are going to create human bear conflicts. So great. Thank you for bringing that up. And let's just make sure we got it clear.
Heather, this is Darren. I don't think it reads like, I like where Brett and Robin, you're going with this. I worry that we're opening a serious can by not saying new, or I know there's proposed in here, but I think by the way I read it, we could be backing up on recreational activities for the people of Montana by not being very clear and stating that these are new or proposed. I think I need a little more stronger wording, that we're not going through every trail and everything that's already established in Montana and public recreational activities, and don't go backwards on that. I mean, some of them may need to be investigated, and I think they do that on a seasonal basis, but I guess just playing a little devil's advocate, I'm not sure it always reads that these are only new activities.
I agree with you, Darren.
Well, I think that's an interesting point. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, Darren. So if we scroll up just a little bit, I do think we talk about, don't we cover trail closures if needed? Doesn't that say that in this section?
Number 2.
I understand.
Yeah, okay, so that would cover, right. Hang on, just let me finish my thought. So we're saying encourage temporary, so that takes care of existing if something happens and we realize that there's an issue in existing recreational opportunities. I guess my concern is I don't want us to lose the ability to, when we see something that originally wasn't a problem for recreation, now is a problem because of location. So we covered that. So I think to your issue, yeah, I'd be okay with making that change to have a little bit of clarity.
How do you want that to read then, Darren? Do you know?
I'm good with that. We can wordsmith it, but I appreciate your comment, Rob, and walking me through your concept and thinking about that. So I appreciate that. Maybe I'm being a little sticky on the wording, but I appreciate the dialogue. Thanks, everybody.
And I would kind of echo that. I think that the word newly, however it's written, I'm not a scholar in writing, so I think that, but I like that idea. I think that captures my thoughts. So thanks.
That helps me a lot too, Darren. I like that. I didn't know what I was thinking, but you told me. Thanks.
Any further thoughts or discussion? Any opposed? All right, we've got this one approved. Thanks for the discussion and clarification on this one.
I'm sorry, we're still going to talk about zones areas, right? That's going to be something you're going to go through with Heather?
Yeah, that's something, Hillary's on leave, but I did send her an email. And so I think the writing team can address that just to make sure when they go through, make sure it's all consistent and the terminology is correct. So I don't think we need to go through that today, but we'll make sure that that gets addressed. So thanks. Okay.
So B, outside of areas where grizzly bears are or may be present, this is under waste management. This was just added to clarify that not everyone needs bear resistant sanitation right now.
Darren, do you want to walk through the discussion that we had in the writing team on this one?
Yeah, we had a discussion. I think we talked about it when we were in person in Helena too, is how to not mandate statewide sanitation rules, but to encourage planning boards or county commissioners to think proactively about what the potential would be and ramifications. And I think this, when we wrote this up, this was the easiest way to kind of spell out to be proactive in other parts of states where grizzly bears are not currently at, without causing a bunch of immediate money expenditures and mandating something. Does that sound about right to Jonathan, Aaron?
Yeah.
Is this the same wording that we decided on for all the other things where we said where grizzlies exist or may be present or whatever? Or do we need to change it to that wording, or does it matter?
I may just want to touch bases with Chad. I don't remember how he worded it, but I thought he was articulate in how he said it.
Yeah, so this is where we put this kind of just to stay consistent from above is kind of how we changed it.
Okay.
And so, I mean, yeah, it just is consistent with everything else.
Perfect.
I have no problem with this the way it is, but if it needs to be, I understand. We've talked about it enough. I understand the essence of where it's going.
And actually, what I think it does too is it complements Lawrence's addition to the guideline.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Excellent point, Aaron.
Great.
So are we
Any
ready?
opposed? Wonderful. Looks like we've got approval on this one.
Cool.
So under the distribution section, can we go to the number 21 first, and then we can go to Michelle's comment?
I'd like to talk about the distribution one real quick, just to understand where I'm coming from. In Helena, I talked about how I felt that it's hard to talk about distribution and connectivity without really having an actionable recommendation about habitat. And I had originally talked with Hillary about research needs that she needs in areas where they haven't done the research yet. And one of the things she did talk about was analysis of that habitat so they can do better modeling and understanding distribution and why it's happening the way it's happening. So I worked with other members of the council on wording to try to get some sort of actionable recommendation into this section about habitat. And that final wording basically talks about looking at the areas in where bears are or may be present. I tried to use that language. And analyzing those areas for grizzly bear occupancy so that they can then look at distribution trends and track them. It's really important to have those specifics down to understand the movement of bears. At least that's how it was explained to me. So I just think it's important, and we did talk about it in Helena, and I came up with wording and worked with other members to try to bring it about. So I just would like that to be a discussion.
So Michelle, you're proposing an addition recommendation that essentially states Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks and relevant agencies should analyze areas where grizzly bears are or may be present for current habitat conditions that could support grizzly bear occupancy in order to better understand and track distribution trends.
Yeah, and it's not really a new one. It was a bullet point, but I always thought it was a standalone. So I thought if I could write it more clearly to make it more of a standalone, it would be more understandable. So it's been in the document since Helena, and it was taken out, and I feel like it has a place.
Thanks, and thanks for that clarification. It has been part of the discussion, and so thanks for bringing that back up. And I'm just assuming everyone can see the wording that Michelle has proposed. Are there any opposed to this wording being put back in as a recommendation?
Can you move it back to the right, Trina? I can't read the first set of words on the left.
Do you want to just, Trina, put it into the document? I think it'll be easier for people to see.
I'd like to just throw in from the writing team. I think some of the reason why that was taken out is the food sources seem to us, or at least to me, to be one criteria of many that go into making suitable habitat or areas that are important for genetic and demographic connectivity and long-term sustainability of the grizzly bear, as it said in number 20. And also in 21, using a process to evaluate and identify landscapes that can be considered important for recovery. And so certainly food sources is one small part of that. And we felt that by putting that in, we would have to then go through identifying every other criteria that was a part of that, rather than just only calling out the single aspect of food source. So we felt it was an incomplete list of important criteria, and that the general idea of doing an assessment of the landscape for important areas to recovery would have already included that among many other things that should be considered as well.
Also, this is covered in guiding principles in a couple of them, I believe.
And that was the first time it got taken out, was because we felt we covered it well in the guiding principles.
Right.
As statements.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I think that the point though is that didn't we want to try and have an actionable item with it? I think, isn't that what we're trying to get at here from a guiding principle?
Well, and Robin, and this just as a writing team kind of clarification, through the public process to evaluate and identify landscapes that can reasonably be considered important for grizzly bear recovery and connectivity from those that cannot, I feel like that is, or would I be wrong in saying that that is an actionable item that would inherently include a food source assessment and inventory?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Jonathan. And this is not just about food sources, but that was one of the ones that Hillary would like to look at. But I guess what I'm trying to say is she also felt that there was a need in the CYE and the NCDE to do this analysis. And the other two items are about landscapes in between and connectivity zones.
What if, just as an addition or an edit to 21, if it was should evaluate and identify habitat characteristics in those landscapes that can reasonably be and that way we've got the word in there. I think that's what's being implied anyway. So would that work?
I think it narrows number 21. That's my only concern, the way I read it. I guess I wonder, like, I think 22 is fine the way it's written. I think I mean, I was on the writing team too, and then we went over and over these discussions many times. I just wonder should we talk about being just opposed to 22 being in there and just move to 21, or do we want to make edits to it? I guess I feel like we keep coming around to this, and so at some point I think we need to get to that point.
I think there are
Like
places.
Aaron, I was just going to say, I like Aaron's suggestion. I mean, number 22 looks fine to me. Maybe we should just see if we can get sign off on that and then move to 21, if I understood Aaron's suggestion correctly.
Well, can I jump in real quick on a question before we move on a vote here? When I hear Michelle talking, what Hillary wants to do is not just a 1 year picture in time. She wants long term, and 22 doesn't read that way to me. 22 says current habitat. It doesn't say long term habitat. It doesn't see food. We know caches of food go up and down every year, so I'm not even sure we're capturing what Michelle said in the statement. But I think throughout the document, when we start documenting habitat or looking and evaluating, we're trying to cover all that without strictly saying certain things of that. But we talk about research, we talk about other things. So I'm not saying I'm opposed to 22. I'm just not sure it says long term or that. It says a picture in time, current habitat, and I'm not sure I'm agreeing with that either.
I agree.
Michelle, you're on mute.
I'd be fine with current being taken out of that. But I do think that this is important for that long-term look. So you're correct, Darren. Thank you for that change. But I do still think that this is kind of an important one to put in there.
Can we look at like long-term habitat conditions and see is there a way to put it into 21?
Yeah, I don't want to do any more wordsmithing with 21, but I guess in Darren, you said we have research in there. We have research. The research kind of got changed to just research about hazing and conflict prevention, and not necessarily research about habitat or conditions or that. So I guess that's where I feel like that got lost in the document. I'm hoping to get it back in here.
Under 22, you took out current. Can we put long-term habitat?
Not sure.
So I'm gonna make you guys dizzy for a minute and scroll because I need to read everything under this real quick. I don't know that long-term fits right there either. I think it'd be better just for habitat conditions.
What about if we're talking about this, why don't we just say Montana Fish and Wildlife Parks and relevant agencies increase and promote research on habitat conditions that could support grizzly bear occupancy where bears are or may be present. That covers anything they want to research and promotes, and we support that research where bears are or where they may be present. And that way it can be long-term, short-term. I'm just trying to find a happy medium here for everybody is what I'm trying to do here. So I don't want to get too extensive. I don't want to be too verbose, but I want to capture maybe what Michelle's seeing as a whole. But then I think it's covered, but I'm trying to find some middle ground here for people.
So what is, I don't think this is where we are. Where, Darren, could you reiterate what you just said so that we can see what it looks like? Promote research on habitat conditions. Do we take analyze areas out on habitat conditions where grizzly bears are or may be present to better understand and track distribution trends, or just stop at present?
I would stop at present, but I'm just trying to find some happy medium in the world. So I'm just trying to help Jonathan or Trina, whoever's typing.
And I could get behind that. I think that if I heard what Michelle said, that's what Fish Wildlife Services or U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services was looking for was some way to be able to track. Is that correct?
I think we would need to add after conditions that could support grizzly bear occupancy.
Good point.
Oh, wait. I think we need to keep where grizzly bears are or may be present, correct?
I'd like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't like all the grizzly bears. How do we change that so it doesn't say grizzly bears
Are you
twice?
talking about the word or the? Never mind.
I mean, in general, Brett, I don't like grizzly bears.
Easy, Brett.
Okay, so should increase and promote research on habitat conditions that could support grizzly bear occupancy.
We could say where they are or may be present, so you don't say it so many times.
Well, here's my issue with how that is worded is because if they already occupy that space, clearly the habitat conditions are supporting them or else they wouldn't live there.
Right, but if you have the analysis, then you can start to document and look at trends. Like, yes, it's supporting them, but why? What's in there?
So is this purpose, I guess, from Hillary's standpoint, is this purpose, and I know she's not here, but is this to determine if we were going to, if we had a bear that we needed to put in a different location as opposed to moving it all the way back to an ecosystem? Is this what the purpose of this is, or is it for something else?
My understanding is it's for something else, to really look at what's out there, why bears are going to where they're going. Like, as Trina said, if the grizzly bears are there, obviously they're being supported. So why are they there? What food conditions are there, so that they can kind of start tracking and understanding, should there be a disturbance, where bears might go next, if that makes sense.
And wouldn't they do that anyway?
Well, they haven't, and that's the thing. They've done that a lot in the Yellowstone area, but they have not done it in the NCDE, the CYE, or the connectivity areas.
Well, if worded like this. MTFWP and relevant agencies should increase and promote research on habitat conditions that could support grizzly bear occupancy in order to better understand and track distribution trends.
This is when we need a cricket.
Yeah.
What I'd like to propose is that we sit with this for a few minutes, because I know that from our last couple of meetings that sometimes we need a little bit of time to sit with this as opposed to continuing discussion around it. So let's sit with it for a little bit. Let's go up to 21 and move through the document a bit more, and let's come back to it and see then how it reads and how it feels and where folks are with it. Are you okay with doing that?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So let's go up to 21.
All right, Jonathan, you want to explain what you did there?
I think, oh.
I'll try.
Sorry, that was quick.
I'm back. Yeah, I just moved out. I've been working with a lot of coffee this morning.
I don't think Trina saw your text. So.
Sorry, I'm not looking at the chat box.
All right, Jonathan.
Well, yeah, we basically, in 21, there were, I think this is where a lot of these subpoints were listed underneath this that we felt were kind of just specific redundancies to what the intent of the main recommendation here is. So I don't know, I guess as far as the council goes, it's, you know, are any of these subpoints that we deleted not covered in the general idea that 21 is communicating there? And I know that it does have some of those specifics that we're kind of talking about, but you know, on this last iteration, a big part was we all agreed, try to streamline this thing. And also the idea that by listing specifics left us open to missing out on a lot of things rather than keeping it general and up to the experts in the field to determine what specifics are necessary to accomplish that general recommendation.
Well, and we also incorporated some pieces of that inside some of that stuff we've agreed to in the guidelines. So it got rolled up into the, you know, recognizing the private land piece throughout the document, but then specifically as we moved into, I think, guiding principle 11 and a few other guiding principles. So it just felt very repetitive. And then we also need to talk about just this whole section in and of itself, because there have been slight edits. So I wanted to thank, you know, everybody who worked on this, because it did take a lot of work outside of this meeting to get to where this is. And so I appreciated everybody's kind of back and forth and side meetings to try and figure this one out.
Mm-hmm.
So Erin, are you suggesting that you want to look at this whole section just to kind of go through and remind folks of what's in here, and then go back to 21 and see, have you guys captured what you want in this section?
I mean, I think if we could just look at 21, but if we need to go back to that, we can. But if we can just, you know, look at 21.
Okay.
I think that's important too.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to add some context to what Erin just brought up, I'd forgotten about that, but this 21 really was the result of the discussion at the end of our last Zoom meeting. We kind of left off on this idea, and so 21 was trying to incorporate a lot of those thoughts and conversations, and then, like Erin said, had a lot of work from quite a few members since then to come up with this draft.
Anyone else want to add anything to it? I know Lawrence and I think Michelle and Cole were involved. Anyone else want to add any other thoughts to this, or any questions or discussion, or are you wanting to move on a vote? Michelle?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone that worked through this and looked at the wording and tried to get it to where it could be, where we could all agree on it. You know, and I am still hesitant on this, just because I don't want any bears to be penalized for just wandering somewhere where they're not supposed to be. And that's my major concern on this. But I'm okay with the wording. And I really appreciate the work with Cole and Lawrence and the writing team to get this to a point where it works.
Thanks, Michelle. Anyone else? Anyone opposed to having number 21 as it stands in here? Sounds like we've got it approved. Great work, everyone. Great work. Thank you.
All right, do you want to go back to 22 or do you want to move on and come back to 22?
Unless anyone's had any thoughts in the last 2 minutes, I say let's keep going and then we'll come back to it.
Okay.
I guess I'm okay with the way 22 reads as I just read through it again the second time or third or fourth time.
Okay. Are you proposing we go back to it?
I just started scrolling.
Michelle, do you need a little bit more time?
Yes, please.
Okay, we need a little bit more time. So
for number 3 under well, resources, number 3 under suggested sources of resources.
And I can explain this one a little bit. So we just basically, this was just rewording of this original that's on the right, trying to get at, it's just a big topic, and so we were trying to just streamline the recommendation, and also note that it's going to take a lot of different economic streams for this. It sort of, again, kind of complements our guideline, our final guideline about it's going to take everybody, and so that's sort of some of our thinking around it. Although I always forget to turn my video on. Although Jonathan or Darren might have other thoughts too.
Now, my only comments was it's very succinct and to the point, and that's what we were trying to do. Is we were dancing around a lot of subjects, so we thought we'd just state it flat out. So.
I think Darren just put it the best possible. It was a really complex topic that seemed to need just some really succinct verbiage to it.
anyone opposed to this new wording?
Does it make sense there, establishing diverse, alternative, and sustainable economic streams? Oh, you're just making that statement. Establishing this would benefit. Okay, I'm clear now. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey.
Now can we go back up before we start?
Good idea. Oops.
Michelle, you've had enough time to think about this one? Okay.
This is Darren. I'm not so sure I'm comfortable with this 22 right now. I liked it better where we had grizzly bear were likely to occur, like we have in all of our common language. Right now, the way it reads, we have Hillary working all the way over in Glasgow, Montana. Maybe that's someday it's trend, but I don't think that's where we need to be, and that's how I read it. And I'm not sure I like the sentence at all, how it's there. I'm not opposed to research and tracking and, you know, maybe some analyzation, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with where we are with this sentence right now.
There. So Darren, can you see what Aaron added at the beginning of the sentence? That's what I was trying to figure out how to get in there. And I think that might cover it.
I can get behind that one now with that increased that preface.
And you could put a period after occupancy and that would be fine too, because there's probably other reasons to do that. I just put out one reason. I don't know if that makes it too specific or not. What do you think, Darren?
Yeah, I'm good either way. To better understand and track. I mean, the one thing, yeah, I'm good with that. Occupancy's fine.
I guess the question there, Michelle, is do you want it to specifically track distribution trends, or do you just want it to say that they should research habitat? God, I can't talk today. Research habitat conditions for everything.
Yeah, that's a good question, Shana. I feel like it would be probably better for them to be open so they could choose, but I'm happy to leave it in if people want to be more specific.
Okay. Any other thoughts on taking out in order to better understand and track distribution trends, or leave it?
I like it in, but I guess I have to think about that a little more. But
I agree with you, Brett. I like it in there just because we've covered habitat and food and other things in other areas of the document, but we haven't really covered specifically distribution trends. So I kind of like it in there, but I don't care either way.
Leave it in. We're
Leave it
dealing
in.
big
Yeah,
time
let's
with a
leave
lot
it
of
in.
bears outside the recovery area right now. So tracking distribution trends is important.
Yeah.
King Charles has ruled. We're leaving it in.
Oh, yay, King Charles.
All right. Anyone opposed to this recommendation? Great work, everyone. Thanks for the discussion and thanks for bringing it back into the loop, Michelle.
Okay, now we're down to hunting, right?
Thanks,
Right.
everyone.
So as Trina's scrolling down, what I'd like is for the team that reframed the considerations supporting and opposing the role of hunting. Nick, Chad, Michelle, and Robin were the writing team for this group that really, from the last couple of meetings, took on the task of reframing this list in order to get back to the original purpose of wanting to reflect the conversation that the council has had over the course of the last 10 months. So Robin, do you want to share some initial thoughts and then we'll see if Michelle or Nick want to add to them?
can I ask a question first?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. And then Nick, maybe you can share your perspective as well. Michelle had to step away. I just see a note in the chat box. So what we were tasked with was streamlining the both of the columns that were, well, let me take a step back. What we were tasked with was to, as Heather just said, was to frame our considerations for hunting and our considerations for no hunt, or the role of hunting, in a way that better reflected our discussion around it, because since we couldn't reach consensus. And so we wanted to make sure that we all understood that section 2, we're never going to get agreement on it, because that's why we could not reach consensus and we had to create a separate section for it. And we just wanted to make sure that we took a step back, and instead of having the perception that we were sort of going at each other in these lists, is just to fully demonstrate what those considerations were for hunting and not for hunting. And in my opinion, of course, I think Chad, Nick, and Michelle and I did a really good job. We went through each of the points with a fine-tooth comb. And actually, in my opinion, the four of us had a lovely discussion around it. And personally, I got some better understanding. And I think all of us did about, what that discussion was. And so we obviously came to a really good place in it. Then we reached out to several people who we knew had some specific comments about it and concerns. And we further made an addition to the in support of hunting, as that has a role for grizzly bear management. We added a bullet point there. And then we also made a couple of edits, further edits to the hunting does not have a role for in grizzly bear management based on those conversations. So we actually reached out to other council members. And also the other piece that I need to make a clarification on before I hand it off to Nick for him to talk about his experience with that is we also talked about citations and references, and I know the council has all gone back and forth with that. At the Helena meeting, I had been asked originally to produce a list. I was happy to do that, worked really hard to get that done. And as I've talked to the writing team, as I talked to everybody else, I was willing to just add in a hyperlink. So I created that hyperlink that would not be such a big, huge, hairy deal, quite frankly, to add into our document. But for those not only within the council, but also within the public that wanted to go see that, those references could. So we thought a hyperlink was a nice compromise. But I think I stated that we decided as a group that was okay, and we weren't. I think that we were a little bit ambivalent on that. So I want to be clear that I came up with a hyperlink as a compromise that I'd like the entire council to think about. So as far as the 2 columns, I think that's all I have to say about our process, and I'll hand it off to Nick.
Yeah, I thought we had a really good discussion, and really a lot of it was just paring this down. I mean, we realized that sometimes a couple bullet points could be summed up in one. On the side about supporting the role of hunting, we felt like the new number 1 bullet there took care of a lot of other things, but it was really just a lot of paring down, I thought, and realizing that what we understood was that the governor's office wanted to see this healthy discussion from both sides. And so I think it's cleaner and simpler. That's
Yeah, and Nick, thanks for bringing that. I remember that too, because I think the other thing that we brought up as well is that it was important to demonstrate what the conversation was, even though the perception is it's at odds with each other. But to reiterate what Nick just said, we understand that it would be helpful for the governor's office to see that dialogue, and so that's what we tried to hear.
And they took, even if we disagreed, like they took a lot of little suggestions that we made on the column opposing the role of hunting. For example, I mean, I'll just throw one out here for this whole group. We talked about implementation of an immediate grizzly bear hunt on the 3rd point down. And we talked about funding needs and some of those statements. And, like, yes, hunting might be in decline in the country, but not in Montana. We have the highest participation in the nation per capita. So it was good. I mean, I think it's cleaner and simpler, and I'd like to hear what, I guess, the larger council thinks.
Thanks, Robin and Nick and Michelle and Chad for really taking the time and engaging in this conversation and moving this section to more streamlined, more clear, and a better reflection of the conversation that you all have had over the last 10 months. Any questions or conversation from other council members?
Does this include the comments that that Chuck made yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, can you scroll that down?
Yes, it does. Yeah, that has, we got that to the writing team late yesterday.
So do you want to highlight what that was in case folks didn't go back in and read it since then? Because not everyone was included in that discussion.
So the addition was on the left-hand side of the screen was the last point, I think. Is that right? I can't, I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, I added.
Yeah, no, yeah, the last point is what, yeah. And then the edits on our side were, I don't remember what point it was.
It's the third one up on the right.
You remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the third one
Thank
up on the
you.
right. I just highlighted it, changed to a could, hunting could.
Trina, do you want to scroll up? Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
I also have a request from Kristen. She did not do the survey because she was busy having a baby. But she would like to be included in the 16 of 18 council members and 13 answered in support of a grizzly bear hunt. If you guys are okay with adding her to that. In that bullet.
Any opposed to adding?
Well, I mean, did she
Yes,
actually take the survey? I mean, I guess I don't want it to be factually incorrect. I'd welcome her survey. But she should probably do the whole thing at some point.
Right, and she would be willing to do that. She just didn't get it done in the time period
that's
for the baby.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. And it's not, please hear me, I'm not trying to be antagonistic here. Truly, I'm with Nick. Let's be factually accurate here.
Right.
So
If she can get that done in the next week or something, that'd be fine.
Yeah. Does anyone still have the link to that?
Should be in my email somewhere.
Okay, could you make yourself a note to send that to her if you can find it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Who sent?
Greg,
Cecily
Greg.
sent that out.
Yeah, I never did get it. I didn't take the survey. I never could get it to come up on my computer where I could make the comments or check the boxes. I could read it, but I never could. So if you can still do the survey and if Nick can share that, I'd like to do that too, because I'd like my number added to that 13 also.
Okay. Greg, I had to print mine and then scan it and send it back to Cecily.
I don't have a printer.
Okay. Does your wife still work at a school with a printer?
Yes.
I'll figure out something. No, she retired a couple of weeks ago, but I'll figure out something and get it printed and scan it.
Okay.
If you'll send the link again. Thank you.
How close do you live, Trina? Maybe you can just drive it up there too.
3.5 hours.
Well, you go to Kalispell every week.
You want to meet me in Kalispell? I'll bring it to you on Monday.
I'll meet you in Polson.
Hard pass.
All right, folks.
You
So-
can leave it at our office when you go by, Trina, and then I can get it to Greg.
I'm just gonna ask for the writing team side is we just need a deadline for that. Because this you know,
Where the hell did it go?
and then we just need
I
to make a
would-
note on there, Trina.
I just did.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to split hairs here, but I mean, I do think the point has been made, but I agree with Aaron. There needs to be a time limit and let's, just get it done.
I think
And I have
Cecily
a
is
little bit
on
more to say
leave.
about that, but
I think Cecily's on leave this week, and so why don't we ask that folks get it done by Monday, and that Kristen and Greg can work with Cecily to ensure that theirs gets completed.
Well, if that, yeah, I mean, I think it's problematic to send the survey to anybody other than Cecily potentially, just because it's anonymous. So,
Right.
but I don't know how long she's on leave for, and if she'll even have time to.
What I could do, Greg, is I can just print it off and put it in the mail to you. So send me or email me your address and I'll just print it off and put it in the mail, and then you can just send it to Cecily from there and she can share whatever or add it to the results of the other one or whatever. We'll figure it out.
Thanks, Trina.
Rich just said that he could try to print it out and bring it to me, and so he knows he's handy.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, Rich.
Let's try that. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll get back to the numbers once we've got it actual and factual. Regarding this section as a whole, anyone opposed to having it in here as is?
I want to make sure that we're voting on what's in red.
What's in red?
Okay, so,
Yes. The considerations supporting the role of hunting, the considerations opposing the role of hunting.
I'm good with that. I like it. I've read it several times. I think you guys did an extremely excellent job in summarizing our thoughts, and I'm very much in support of it.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Brett.
The very first bullet under support of hunting, I suggested a change. A grizzly bear hunt would not take place until ESA protections have been removed, instead of they are removed from the Federal Endangered Species Act list. I think it just, I don't care about changing it or leaving it either. It just seems like it makes it read a little easier.
Sure.
Needs to read easier, yes.
I guess with the one caveat, I guess if, I like what you just said. I'm not taking away from that. I agree with what you just said, Trina. I get the one thing is the voting part of it. Obviously we need to address that as those two other surveys come in. Other than that, I think everything's fine. So.
Yeah, and that can just be.
And I guess I had sent this to the writing team and not the full council, and it probably is obvious based on what Nick and I have just said. And but we felt so good about our work, and especially after we made a couple more edits based on who we had reached out to. We were hoping that the council, we would make a recommendation that you guys would support it. So thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say now it's written as if ESA protections would be put under state management. So
yeah, just say the bears and grizzly bears, and they are and
grizzly bears
are put, yeah.
And then are we voting that we put the citations in?
Maybe let's approve the bullets first and then do that.
I'd like to do that. Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Anyone opposed to the bullets as they are? Great work, everyone. Really, really well done. Great work.
And then as soon as we get those surveys back, we can update everyone on the council. So that could be a tentative, whatever.
Yep, thank you.
Do we have a deadline for that?
Monday.
I'll check to see when Cecily's back, because it does require her. So the hope is that folks can get it to her by Monday, and then we'll get her verification.
Hey, Heather, this is Mark. She'll be working next week. She comes back this weekend.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
I do think that's critical. We get the last two people surveys.
Can you give her a heads up, Mark?
I will do that.
Thanks.
Also, if whomever the third one is that didn't get their survey done, if they want to reach out to Cecily and ask for it, you can do that too. And then we'd have all 18 of us.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I can check in with her as well on Monday to see if she can reach out to that person as well.
Well, and I'm looking for it, but I don't see it in my email, but I do have, I've also reached out to Mike Lewis, who's the social scientist at Fish, Wildlife and Parks.
Sean just emailed it to everyone.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, we should all have it now.
Good.
Thanks, Sean. All right, folks, what do you guys want to do around the citations?
Can I just make another plug for that, please?
Go ahead, Robin.
So what we did is in Helena, I was asked to put together that list for the considerations for no hunting as a management tool. And I'm normally not, I'm normally pretty flexible, but I really want to see this added into the document as a hyperlink. I can certainly understand not wanting it to be in a PDF. It's too long and big, but I would like that hard work that I did based on a request of the council to be acknowledged. And that's why I created the hyperlink. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting in our conversation with Chad and Nick and Michelle and I is that Chad and Nick looked at some of those pieces and made the statement that they were interested in going and looking and reading those. So it's data. I don't mean to imply they agreed with that. They just thought they were valid things that valid pieces of data and science and studies that grabbed their attention and they were interested in looking at. So I would imagine maybe other people would want to do that as well. So I really am very interested in seeing the hyperlink included in here that I think also meets the concerns that the writing team had about how big that document was as it fit into the overall document. And I will also make my offer again that if there's I'd be happy to create a hyperlink for any citations and references that the for hunting side would like to send to me. I'm happy to format that and put a hyperlink together for that column as well.
Any opposed to Robin's suggestion?
No, I think Robin must have spent a lot of time putting that together, and I think it will be valuable for people to be able to go look at.
I'll just say, I mean, I didn't obviously spend the time. I mean, I've looked at a lot of papers over the years and stuff, but I commend the work you put into that. I probably could get a handful of papers that back up, you know, I also think some papers are social science and some are hard wildlife science, and depends on the statement and you know, and I strongly support solid social science too. So I mean, there is a methodology and a validity to that. But yeah, Robin, I'll put some time in and try to get you a handful of links on a couple of those statements.
That's perfect.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Robin, for your work, and Nick for taking some time to add to that. And we can work with FWP to figure out how best to make sure that it gets included with the final document. So the last, I think well, actually, there's one more red statement that was added under, I think you guys have called it guidance. Trina, do you want, or anyone from the writing team want to talk about this one being added? Looks like Annie added it.
So this one Annie added just because it's already in the FWP hunting guidelines that they wrote when we were going to have a Yellowstone hunt. And so my suggestion was to put in the actual wording from FWP, but I don't know what it is, and I didn't have time to look it up. But Aaron wrote in, oh, is this the actual recommendation, Aaron? In your comment?
No, I just was providing that for reference.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, and I just, when FWP had its season package in 2016, which was required by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, it did this to try to, frankly, limit harvest of females of reproducing age. And, you know, because cubs stay with them for 2.5 years. So if you had a group of bears, there could be, say, two, you know, over 2-year-old bears that can weigh 175 pounds. And, it was a way to try to protect females of reproducing age and really direct the harvest toward males. So, and I will point out that hunting package did survive a court challenge. So I see value in it.
So the second bullet says female grizzly bears with dependent young as well as dependent young should be protected from hunter harvest. So if that's what we're saying, then we don't need to say it twice.
That's a good point. I mean, I think that's, again, all up to the FWP, but I'm fine with spiking it either way.
And I think this also came in because it came from a public comment from Center of Biological Diversity, I believe. I think that's another reason why Annie added it. And I think it was just, they were just saying that if you just are looking for females, it's very hard to distinguish female from male. And that it might be better to say when more than one bear is present. So I don't know if that reinforced it or we could add it on to the female one, but to get the gist of it.
No.
So this is Darren real quick. I think we should spike it. I mean, we have what the idea and the idea behind it, but it's pretty nebulous. What is it when two bears are present? Does that mean across the coulee, half a mile apart? If I can see two with my binoculars, I think there's some nebulous here. That the goal is to protect the breeding age females and the dependent young, and I think we do that with the thing above. So I would vote to remove.
I have a question. If you copy this last sentence here from just for reference and added it, I just don't know that we want to copy paste FWP stuff. I'm wondering, does what that red bullet try and get at what I just put in here? And if it does the currently black edit need some additional language?
So I guess it just depends on what we're trying to limit. If we're trying to limit females and their cubs, then it's fine with the first sentence. If we're trying to say that if we see, so for instance, on our ranch, we have a set of twins that have been here for, I think, 5 years now, and they're always together and they always will be together. So does that mean that if we see them together, we can't shoot one of them because it's with another bear, even though they're not females? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, how limited do we want to make this?
Well, again, as part of the hunting proposal in 2016, they also had season dates when it's far less likely that females are out. But those are details. I mean, I'm fine with spiking it and just leaving the statement because this is a bit more broad. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I think we'd be better off just taking it out because it's, all those concerns are covered by all these other bullets that are under these guidelines or whatever we called them.
Including the next one, sure.
Exactly.
Anyone opposed to removing this? Okay. So last, but certainly isn't going to be least, is a discussion item around the use of the word majority. There has been a lot of dialogue, both in email and in the comments here, around the use of this word. Who wants to start the discussion around this?
I'd be happy to start.
Okay, Robin.
So as I was listening to us talk through our columns of for hunting, no hunting, and going through this list, I took a step back and thinking about this whole majority use of the word majority and what I've been hearing from folks about it. So let me invite the council members to think about it this way. I think that Michelle and I both have come up with some really good suggestions that gets to what the intent behind that statement is. And again, I would point out that in the pro hunting side, you have the numbers that you're looking for, and you're continuing, to build those numbers. So I think the point is well made and stated in the document. The reason that I would encourage us as a council to really rethink using that word majority is simply because the public has become very confused, because we chose to do two things. We chose to put a voting mechanism into section 2 in the column for pro hunting. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm giving you the perspective from the public that I'm hearing. And believe you me, I am hearing it loud and clear. And I'll try not to be real hyperbolic about that. And so then we go down and use majority guidelines, and that wasn't our original language either. We had something that got to that point, but we just didn't use that word. And so it's created a lot of confusion out there in the public. And I don't know this for a fact, so I want to be real clear about that. But I would imagine that the reason that we saw the Sierra Club submit in public comment the analysis of the public comments around hunting, no hunting, they did a pretty extensive job of just making analysis of those comments. I would imagine that came from seeing us put that into our document in section 2. So I would just really encourage us to think about it from a perspective of our process and how we've worked together so well, even in the contentious issues, and just soften that language. And like I said, I think Michelle has come up with a couple of really good ideas that I would really, really encourage us to consider and support to make that change.
And so what is the recommendation for alternative language? Just to be clear, whether Robin, you want to say that, or Michelle, you want to say that? What are you asking for the council to consider?
The list that I put down, and I don't know that actually went to the whole council, Robin, was in this one, I say a strong component of the council. I also said a large component of the council, many of the council, or even most of the council. Any of those I think would work and say the same thing without this idea of majority minority, because those terms come from a different type of collaborative process.
Why don't we just say following our guidelines for a proposed grizzly bear hunt? I mean,
But that's not accurate either, Nick. I mean, I think most or majority, I think some other language, but because I agree. I mean, I think majority is specifically tied to a process. So that's the sticking point with the word majority.
well, following are the council's guidelines. I mean, when
but that's not really true.
But that's not really true.
Well, that's why we did because in this section 2, this unicorn section, we did have to vote by majority because there were things that we couldn't come to consensus on. So what was voted by the majority is what went in here. And so if we have 14 of 18 council members that support a grizzly bear hunt, that is a majority. And so that's the clearest way to say that.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, Trina, absolutely. I understand what you're saying, Trina, exactly. And that's why I tried to preface what my comments are, to take a step back and think about how it's being perceived by the public. And I think we can say the same thing is if we just don't use that word majority, because as Aaron stated so succinctly, it's tied to a different process. And I think we can say the same thing using those several different words that Michelle came up with and gets to what the council wants to do here. I really want us to think about how it's being perceived. That I totally get what you're saying, but maybe if we could just take a step back from that.
So here's my question then. What makes people feel better about most of the council as opposed to the majority of the council?
That's a great question, Trina. So what I would say about it, based on the feedback I've gotten about this, using that word, it's because majority is that word, that type of voting process is part of a different type of process than the public understood that we were in. So that's how I would answer that. Others may have a different opinion.
Nick, were you going to say something?
Well, I don't care if you just say following our guidelines, and I mean, or if you say the councils. I mean, why? I didn't think even the people who were on the side of not supporting the role of hunting, these are recommendations. Even if you don't want to see a hunt, these are ideas to make it a better hunt, or I don't know.
Were you gone that day, Nick? Because that was a huge battle that we had in Helena the last time we met in person, I think, because the opposition doesn't want to be included in these guidelines at all. So that's why we changed it to majority, because that.
Okay. Well, I'd say most of, sure. I mean.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying, Trina. I think we can get to the same point. Not only do you get, and you have the pro hunting is a good hunting is a valid management tool. You get to that point. At this point in time, I'm stepping out of my point of view about it and saying how it's received as a total report and making that small change to many, most, whatever. It's just that word triggers a different reaction. And I think we would be better served as a council if we would just make that small.
I have no problem with that. It's saying the same thing.
I'd like to just jump in. I think, I would disagree that these aren't the council's guidelines. Sorry, let me put my video on. We've described really well that these are down here because they did not reach consensus to become a recommendation. And our process says that those things will become input, or we've decided to call them guidelines. So these are the council's guidelines, regardless of whether or not there's full consensus to them. The process defines these as being our council's non-consensus input, which we've decided to call guidelines. So it would be my belief that it would be a accurate portrayal, or using the words council guidelines is an accurate statement that follows our process here.
Jonathan, I'd have to disagree with you a little bit on that, just because, we didn't go through each of these, and that's not something that I think we have to be, I just don't think that that's the case. I think I think it would be more accurate to change the language of that specific word rather than just imply that they come from everybody in the council, and that, which also implies that everybody in the council is comfortable with that. And we've already been through this at the last meeting on that. That's just not the case.
But that's what a recommendation is. That's not what a guideline doesn't.
I understand that, Jonathan. It's just, yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
So there's a new sentence that's just been written. So can we look at this sentence to see if this might address where folks are?
Can you scratch out what that might is it Trina? Are you the one that?
Yeah, so I'll just strike out the first sentence. My question to Heather is, did we already approve this? Because it was in black. Not that I care if we have
Right,
this.
I understand that, but yeah. But look what we got to. See that sentence that just got it added in there? I'm totally fine with that. That gets to my concern about our process. I could get totally on board with that. And Trina, you make a good point. It's just that because of how it ended up in Helena, I really feel because of the great work that we've done over this last year, it was really worth one more discussion about it. And I don't want you to think I'm not hearing you loud and clear about black versus red, but I think a sentence has come out of this discussion we just had that certainly could meet my concerns.
Okay, so I just changed it to make myself happy. That was a public comment from now I can't get back to the chat.
Josh Osher from the Western Watersheds Group provided this suggestion.
I
Thanks,
think it looks
Josh.
fine. Yeah.
So, and then I added by the 14, if that's the number that we actually come up with after everyone finishes their surveys. The following guidelines have been provided by the 14 council members that support an eventual grizzly bear hunt. I also don't care if we change it back to a proposed grizzly bear hunt if and when a grizzly bear hunt was to occur in the future or whatever.
Yeah, I think
wording there doesn't matter.
I think if you're going to if you're referring specifically back to the survey results, then I think you need to say that.
So do you want to do
the original?
A super?
I just don't know if you need a number, but yeah.
I think
I was gonna.
Is the majority of us that think that hunting is okay.
Hold
I'm
on,
not
Jonathan.
gonna agree with this.
Hold on, Robin. Jonathan wanted to chime in.
I don't agree with this new sentence. I think it's stronger than the one. I personally don't support an eventual grizzly bear hunt. I support fulfilling the responsibilities that we've continuously been charged to provide recommendations on. And that's where I stand with it. I think that the old statement had a less pro-hunting message to it that's just saying these are considerations for a hunt rather than these are considerations for those of us that support the hunt. There might be some middle ground, but I'm not on board with that sentence there.
Yeah, and I would just say, to some degree, Jonathan, I really appreciate that comment because, this one's been a struggle. I mean, I think a conversation around what a hunt would look like is a valuable conversation, but I would not vote on every single bullet point under this, right? So what we moved forward before was the consideration was if this should be in here or not. But I would abstain from voting on each of these different points. I don't support a hunt. And so it's just a complicated piece. And I feel like the previous sentence, ideally with that majority change to something like most or something like that, would be more reflective.
And I would agree with Aaron. I'm trying to, really reach here and get to some common ground, but really this most simple solution is just change the word majority to another word. And I think we meet Jonathan's concerns, my concerns, whoever else shares some of my concerns, and certainly the concern that I've been hearing from the public about that.
So
Trina, you'd made a comment about, let's see, the following guidelines have been provided by the 14 council members that support if and when a hunt. How did you say that?
So I would change it here. I'll just type it in there.
And then take out eventual grizzly bear hunt. Okay.
And we could say in the future, but I think that is redundant. I understand Robin and Michelle's and everyone's concern about majority. I just feel like a majority is how we came to these, because the majority of us did come to these, and I don't think it's as dangerous of a word as people think it is. And maybe
also don't
discounting your opinions. I'm just telling you that I'm right, I guess.
Right. Yeah, right on.
I agree.
Okay. I hear you. I like that too, Trina. I would just add is it's not getting to rightness or wrongness on this. You know, I think again, I'm stepping back here, how it's going to be received, what the feedback I'm hearing. It is a big deal to some folks. And I won't keep repeating myself. I just think we have a simple fix here. Either we can go with what's up there now, or we could change that, just change.
Michelle has proposed something in the chat, and she's saying, most of the council felt it important to include guidelines for a grizzly bear hunt should one occur.
I don't like that, because we were asked specifically by FWP to include these considerations, guidelines, whatever, for a proposed hunt. So, and the governor. So we didn't feel it was important. It is important. It was a requirement, and that makes us feel like we're just, I don't know. I don't like that at all.
That's what I think is a big confusion to the public, is that some of us just out of personal interest felt that we needed to force this into it, but we were specifically asked. I'm not comfortable having anything in here that insinuates this was an optional inclusion. This is something that time and again we were asked specifically to weigh in on, and there were council members who made a decision not to. But the rest of us, it wasn't a decision. It was just fulfilling our responsibility.
I agree.
Oh, that's an interesting take on that, Jonathan. I got to think about that for a minute. That's a very interesting perception there. But it still doesn't change how it's being received the way that we have it crafted right now. And, you know, I'll just go back to the most recent press release that Dylan put out for us, or whoever put it out. That's who I got the email from. Is where we talk a lot about public comment is important to our process. And, you know, I just know that I'm pretty sure what triggered that public comment that got the equal opposite majority piece, you know, out there in the public sphere is just based on the kind of language that we're using here. So, you know, I think we can get there, guys, honoring all of our points of view here. If we just, you know, keep talking through this. I know we don't want to waste time on it. I appreciate y'all being willing to have this conversation. I can't thank you enough, but I do think it's important that we think about that word because of what it's generating there. You know, I guess, and Jonathan, just I would say that, you know, I can't. So if we went through the process of going through each of these bullet points, which I know we're not, because since it's not something that I can support, you know, I stayed out of that piece because it wasn't something that that, you know, I was going to be part of, and certainly understand that we want to have those considerations in here because we were asked to, but we didn't have to show that every single one of us were in that discussion. That was the reason I felt comfortable adding this piece, because we were going to make that distinction. And that was real important to me, to then step back and let the council members who really want to fulfill that obligation, you know, be able to do that.
So I guess right now, I mean, it sounds like we don't agree with that first sentence, Trina, that you added, but I wonder if we just restate the governor's executive order directed that the council discuss the role of hunting. These are the following guidelines provided by most of the council, or something like that. Executive order. I don't know if it's directive or.
Yeah, I don't. Did someone provide me with that wording? I just asked for it.
It just says the role of hunting, and I think you can keep it simple. We don't want to get too.
Maybe requested.
So Sean put it up on the side. If you can see that, you might can just copy and paste it, some of it.
Yeah, I don't think you can say the future of, because that wasn't specifically in the executive
That's what
order.
I'm trying to figure out.
But I think you can just say
It says it including
most of
guidelines for.
So you said the council shall have the discretion to examine grizzly bear related issues that it deems to be important, including at a minimum the following topics critical to its objectives. Role of hunting.
But the executive order doesn't say including guidelines for a proposed grizzly bear hunt. So I think that came later in our discussions with FWP and others. And so I think, I don't know that we can include that the way it's worded now. I think you would just have to say, here are the guidelines provided by most of the council members after hunting.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to suggest. I think that's a good fix there. What do you guys think?
Where's Sean's thing that he shared?
It's in the chat box.
In the chat box.
Come on, chat box.
Yeah, I don't think we need to put the whole directive there. I think you captured it. Aaron, could you capture what you just said? Not that just so we can see it. At the end of that sentence that Trina.
Dylan made a good point too, under the governor's directive in the chat.
Yeah, that's what I just copied and pasted, and so then it just says the role of hunting. So
Yeah, so I don't think we can say that second piece, but I think this gets at that.
yeah, so I took that second part out and I just put the role of a grizzly bear hunt.
And I just moved up the last sentence so we can see this as a complete piece.
Okay. So I think by most of the council members sounds weird. I don't like that. I don't know.
even if you
I-
put the number 40 or whatever, but you know, when you have, even if
I
it was
like
before
a significant
open
number. I think
15,
Aaron has a great idea there.
Brett, what were you saying?
nothing, never mind.
What if we put a superscript after a significant number and then explained at the bottom that however many were in support of a hunt, however many opposed a hunt, and this many people didn't answer the survey.
But that's up in already in our bullet. So we already
Right.
have that information.
Exactly.
And I think that there might
So,
be.
so just to be,
Go ahead, Rob.
yeah, let me just finish to add on to what Aaron said. That's why I felt comfortable bringing this back to the council, because it is captured in the pro hunting bullet points. We need to remember that.
Right.
Trina, when you add that piece though, it kind of doesn't support what Jonathan brought up.
So the following guidelines were provided by a significant number of council members that support an eventual grizzly bear hunt.
Yeah, because I think there are some members that don't support the grizzly bear hunt, but would like to see guidelines should it occur.
But if I just heard Robin correctly, you guys stayed out of this because you
Yeah,
didn't.
no, it's that I'm not talking about me actually. I'm trying to support others.
Well, and I don't want to put words
That's
in
my
Jonathan's
whole-
mouth. So Jonathan.
Yeah, my issue is just that it was like I participate in this discussion because we were asked to. You know, I'm not a large scale ag producer, but I still contributed to discussing those issues. And same thing with this. I don't have to be a grizzly bear hunter to be able to provide important feedback that was requested of us in this process. So, you know, I don't want to conflate being a supporter of hunting grizzly bears with supporting the expected, you know, completion of our task.
With being a part of the conversation, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
Well
Yeah,
said,
so I
Jonathan. Thank you.
So
I'm
right
wondering-
there, I think we capture all the concerns.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this paragraph does capture all of the concerns that have been brought forth. Are there any concerns about the paragraph as it's written?
Yeah, because if and when reminds me of my father, and it meant when. When he said if and when, you know, you do this, that meant I had to do it. I don't know. I have a hard time with that phrase, but
Well, I think it covers though, if it happens or when it happens. I mean, that's maybe your dad was like that, but
I'm fine.
outside
Yeah,
of your family
folks, I'm fine
situation,
with
it just
this.
means if or when.
I'm fine with this. I think this is a good compromise.
yeah, I'm fine with it too. I just had to throw that out because it just reminds me of my father. That was a definite, but I am fine with the wording.
Look at the chat, Trina.
Yes, sir.
I still think like Jonathan's wording.
See, I agree with you, but I don't know. So could we say this number of the following guidelines were provided by this number of council members that did participate in this conversation?
I don't mind in general
Look,
how that last comment in the chat room says, you know, it might can be straight a little bit, but if such a hunt were to occur, and that might take care of Michelle's concerns.
I can't get my chat to open, sorry. If such a hunt were to occur. Oh yeah, I was looking at the beginning of the sentence, not the end of the sentence. If A hunt or two. Okay.
Great.
Yep, I like that too. And then just continue on the following guidelines provided by a significant number of council members. I think that's a sweet spot because again, excuse me for overstating the obvious and repeating myself. Remember, the numbers are captured in the pro hunt place. So I think we have covered that.
Are there any that, Trina, what I'm hearing is that we wouldn't put in the number, that's
Okay.
already reflected.
Okay.
So the way that it is now, the governor's executive order requested the council address the role of a grizzly bear hunt if a hunt were to occur. The following guidelines were provided by a significant number of council members. We acknowledge that hunting is not likely to be an effective tool for conflict prevention or reduction. Is there anyone that is opposed to this paragraph?
I would still like to see the number.
Me too.
I would agree.
The
I think we're being
number
way
is
too
already,
sensitive to a word. I just.
Can we put a footnote with that? Would that do it?
put the footnote. I could get on board if you guys footnoted it because it's already up there, but you know.
So this
Let me
would be
just give
specific to
again,
the
yeah.
survey. Would this be specific to the survey?
Yes.
No, this
If
would be specific to who worked on the guidelines for the hunting season. So it would.
But we didn't like take a vote on who's, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, we kind of did because we had two people specifically say they don't want to be part of this conversation.
well, and I'm abstaining from being a part of the conversation because we didn't necessarily go through and bullets these ones below. So I just am choosing to abstain. So that would be 3 of us then.
Right. Yeah. So we could just say the significant number was 15 of, or whatever, 15.
I mean, if you just, even if you put by, you know, the following guidelines were provided by 14 of the council members.
I would be more comfortable if we footnoted it and then I could get on board with that.
If we did what?
Just put a footnote, Brett.
Okay.
Are folks okay with footnoting it?
I might get on both.
Do you put the footnote by significant number?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And is the number 14?
15.
It would be 15 because there's 3 people that did not participate in that conversation. Or, well, they did, but they didn't. They didn't, you know what I'm saying?
They abstained from voting.
They abstained from voting because they don't want to be part of that. Yes.
Yeah. Are folks okay with the way that it is now?
I would be fine with that footnote. I just think you should probably double check with the folks that aren't here.
That's fine. We can do that.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Really important conversations to get through this. So I appreciate the discussion and the tone in which the discussion has occurred and where you guys have landed. So thank you for that. It's 11:15. I'm going to suggest that we not take a break. If you need to readjust any fluid levels, please go ahead and do that on your own. But we do need to get to talking about next steps. And I'm going to turn it over to Sean on that. He's going to lead us through the next steps and talking about governor's meeting on September 1st and the handoff. And
we need to go back.
We need to go back to 22.
Oh, I thought we did that.
I think I might have a fix that Darren would be comfortable with, but I don't know.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought for some reason I thought we did that. Thanks for catching that.
We did do that.
We did do that.
We did do that.
Yeah.
We did that.
Oh,
We're done.
sorry. I
Darren, you're-
apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. I thought we hadn't gone back.
We went back.
No, Michelle, I was wondering too, so no worries there. I wasn't sure that we had done that. So
Had gone back. Huh. Because I was rewriting. Okay. All right. Yeah, maybe we did.
Okay, so do you want me to stop sharing now, Heather?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Congratulations. Well done, everyone.
We just need a discussion on the bios and an agreement on where we're
Oh.
going with that. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I know. We just need to quickly figure this
Good.
out.
No, yep. Go for it, Erin. Thanks for that. Sorry.
Yeah, so just quickly, we've had a couple different options for the bios. We cannot put them in, although I do think my personal opinion is having some, our names in here somewhere is probably good for the future, and just for documentation. So I would vote for the smaller, the more condensed version of that, just because I think the ones that are big paragraphs are just way too much. And I just don't think they're necessary. So what the writing team did was I just put like the different options here, and then we could take them out entirely. If there's a different format that we're going to be doing. One suggestion Jonathan had is if we're going to be signing this in some way. I don't know how this wants to get finalized. That would just be our names, but so that was kind of our discussion around this, and we just need to decide what we want to do.
I like the smaller version.
Hey, this is Darren real quick. I keep making comments about that. I don't think it adds much to the document, and I still don't. I would feel far more comfortable that the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks retain the website with all of our information, all of the documentation, all of our notes, and everything else as a public entity, so anybody can go back and see any of this. I don't mind signing the document, but if it's all on the web page and all of our notes are there, why include it in a document? And that would be my better recommendation, is to keep the web page and all the information there as a public show, as far as I'm concerned.
On the CWD document that we submitted to the commission for their consideration, and still today, all of the members that were on that council is listed in that document. Very similar to this smaller version. So I would support at least having our names attached to the document, so everybody knows who participated in putting this together.
I also wouldn't have a problem with just having our names listed and where we're from. I don't think they need to know our qualifications anymore or what we do for a living. We could just list, the part of the state that we're from and that in our names, and that would be good enough.
Yeah, I like the shorter version. I think it's important to say who we are and where all this thought process came from. I'm okay with them being on the website, but I will say that I was frustrated looking up another group's website and they had taken off who they were. And to me, that informs what the document's all about, like who was involved in this and why did it happen and why were they chosen? I think those are important points to include in the document. So I guess I would say that I'm for the shorter version.
I move to keep the shorter version in, and let's vote on it, and let's get to the next step.
Any opposed to keeping the short version in that really reflects the geographical and livelihood diversity that you guys bring and mention in the preamble? Yeah. Any opposed? Great, thanks everyone.
So Heather, I would just say, make sure that your biography, sorry, I lost the word, is updated and correct soon.
By Friday.
There you go. Except Jonathan, you can leave yours.
Yeah, you got me covered there, Trina. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really good description. Yeah.
I do think it's a loss to lose Annie's dog's name, but you know.
It's a loss to lose what, Aaron?
Annie's dog's name of Findiggity.
Well, Annie can edit hers to include what she'd like, right, Annie?
If you could put that back in there, then
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Findiggity.
It's a part-time. Oh, jeez.
So Sean, I'm gonna turn this unwieldy group over to you.
Before we get totally out of hand. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing now.
All right. Well, congratulations, guys. This is fantastic to be at this point in our conversations. I hope you're feeling good about it. It's really great to see all of this. Jonathan, if you feel like you need to have your signatures somewhere on this document, maybe we can talk about that too, but it sounds like we're moving forward without signatures and just including your biographies. And I think that's a great spot to land. It represents who you are, your diverse perspectives, geographies, livelihoods, experiences, and all of that.
Oh, I thought we were also signing it. What happened to that?
Oh, are you signing it? Well, we better clarify that. Do you guys want your signatures here?
Yeah, my signature is amazing.
All right. Anyone
Mine's
opposed to having
mine's
their-
terrible, so skip mine. Trina, maybe you could sign for me, would you?
Sure thing.
All right. We can think about that. I just want to make sure that if we're doing that, we have a way to grab your signatures and include them in the document.
Yeah, and I won't be present to do that.
I think our names can be our signatures, in my opinion, but
Is there?
I think our names are our signatures too,
I
but I
agree.
don't care either way.
Yeah. Is everyone okay not doing signatures, just including names?
Name's great.
Cool. All right. So just taking stock of where we are and next steps and looking at the clock here, we've got about half an hour left, and had a conversation with Charlie yesterday that made me think that these next steps are really important to clarify before we get off the phone today. So want to jump right into those. There are a couple of things that we want to focus on for the remaining time we have together. The first is just these next steps for finalizing the document and then preparing for what comes next. There's some real excitement around the work that you guys have done and what it might lead to, which is really exciting to me because that was the hope all along, that this dialogue that you guys have held over the last year would inform next steps and lead toward additional efforts throughout the state to really take steps forward with respect to grizzly bear management and conservation activities. The first, finalizing the document. Thanks to the writing team for continuing to lean into this and saying that you'll be on board to help finalize the content, and we'll aim to do that as quickly as possible. It sounds like by Friday of this week, there are some elements that are coming forward. We'll have to wait until early next week to get some of those survey results finalized, but that fairly quickly and hopefully within a week, we'll have a final document. And then the FWP support team and Heather and I will really do the final push here in terms of formatting and getting it all prepared to hand off to the governor. And also thinking about posting, what works best in terms of the format for posting to the website. Any questions or clarity needed on those next steps for finalizing the document?
can I just ask if that's our deadline is Friday, then if Hillary can't get us the more information on the areas piece, that if Jody can, or somebody else, if Hillary's out, or Jennifer Fort Norris maybe.
Jody did, Jody was on the call. She had to step off, and I did ask her about it while she was on the call, and she said she wasn't sure what Hillary was thinking in that. And so I think Hillary's back on Monday.
Okay, so just keeping that in mind with the timeline.
Yeah. Unless there's someone else on the support team that wants to weigh in on that.
Yeah, thanks. And it does sound like there will be a couple of items that bleed into next week, but at least in terms of content from council members, if we could aim for Friday, that would be a good target. And then if we need to follow up on the survey results or on information from Hillary, we can do that early next week. Anything else on finalizing the document? All right, everything else then is really about preparing for next steps. And there are a couple of items here really around the ideas of outreach and implementation. And the way we've been thinking about it and wanted to run this by you is because the way the council has held conversations so far and the fact that you guys have all had equal voices and there's not a chair or co-chairs for this, you know, I didn't know if it made sense for us to talk about who might represent the council moving forward with respect to potential speaking opportunities or outreach to different committees like the Environmental Quality Council or others. And it seemed like it was a little premature to walk into that space without first thinking about, well, what is it that we want to do here? And to me, what made sense was to think first about, should a small group of council members, maybe the writing team, maybe someone else, just prepare some talking points so that all of you are equipped to share the story of the work that you've done over the last 10 to 12 months. That would enable us to have a consistent approach, that everyone would be talking from the same page if you get approached by colleagues or the press or anyone else, and wouldn't require one or two individuals to really be on point all the time to do the communications and outreach. So if that's the approach that we take, the next step would then be, you know, to develop those talking points, and then on a case-by-case basis, look at near-term opportunities to share that information. And with each of those opportunities, look at who might be the right person or who might be the available person to step forward and speak on behalf of the council. So does that approach make sense to folks, that we would work with you and look for volunteers to prepare a set of talking points to help tell the story of the council's work and to frame their report recommendations?
I think it makes a lot of sense. And, you know, you really,
Boy, that would be really,
yeah. You really want to have it down to 4 to 5, you know, what are the main themes that come through here, so you know, drive home that message publicly.
Yeah, with the caveat, I guess, in my mind is that, you know, we're all, I guess I would rather not appoint one person or two people to carry that message, because I think we're all, as diverse as we are, going to have to talk to different entities or have the ability or even the time. And so, you know, I think getting talking points is a really good strategy to, you know, make sure that we're all on the same page with those. But as far as like specific moments in time to talk to different people, I think it will be variable.
Yeah, exactly, Aaron. And that was really the reflection that I had too. Oh, go ahead, Robin, please.
I agree with that too, Sean, thank you. Because, for example, Jonathan, Chuck, and I were approached because folks, the reporter that wanted to talk to us specifically said they wanted to talk to somebody up in our area. So I think a developed set of talking points would be very helpful. And I think it also carries forward our whole, yeah, I really like that we've all sort of done this as a team, or at least that's how it's felt to me.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're all feeling similarly, because that was really my reflection too, that you've all carried forward an important voice throughout this conversation. And so if we could all continue to speak from the same page about the report and the process, but also continue to bring everyone's individual perspective, I think that's important. Trina, your hand is up. Did you want to chime in as well?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that point. And also, I don't have a problem with talking points, but we also have to keep in mind that what Northern Ag Network is going to call me and ask me to talk about is not going to be the same thing as whatever place calls Robin to talk about, nor do we each care about the same things. Robin is passionate about grizzly bear survival. I'm passionate about rancher survival. Not that we both don't care about the other things, but those aren't going to be what we focus on. And that's not the kinds of questions that, I mean, people aren't going to ask us questions that apply to our talking points all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
thank-
wonder, Sean, if talking points can't be just super general, directly referencing the document or something, because I have the same concerns about that. I mean, we're not just going to
Yeah, no,
reiterate our talking points.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good question. The purpose of the talking points is not to limit what you're able to talk about with others. It's just that everyone will have a couple of talking points to share the perspective of the council as a whole for the process and the report. And then as you have additional questions from reporters or others who you work with, other interest groups, neighbors, whoever it might be, certainly your individual voice continues to have relevance on its own. What this does is just provide that starting point for anyone who's asked to represent the council's work and give you a little bit of some guidance around that. Nick?
I think everybody has, I'd be willing to take a crack at drafting those if people are comfortable with that. And I think everybody can start with saying, look, the consensus process in and of itself is a difficult process, but the bullets stick to what is in the report, and everybody has the liberty to step out in an interview with the press and say, you know, now from my perspective, here's what we reached consensus on, here's what this report said, and can always step out and say, here's my individual perspective. So
Great. Well, thanks, Nick, for sharing that and for volunteering to take a first crack at that. Does anyone want to either join Nick or just endorse Nick as the person who's tasked with coming up with that first draft of talking points for our review and consideration?
I thought Nick did an excellent job before he went on his fishing trip. I thought you captured the essence of what we'd done, and I would definitely support you kind of drafting and putting together some talking points. I thought you did a really good job.
Good. Anyone else want to endorse that? Trina's supporting Nick. Anyone?
Yeah, I
wanna-
can help too if you need help, Nick. I can.
And I mean, these will literally be bullet points. I mean,
Yeah.
they will be pretty, talkers, not an encyclopedia, and everybody can feel free. Oh boy, now we can start the process of no, but I can certainly take criticism, and I just like to get a draft out there, but I'm talking 5 main points of what's in the report, and maybe starting with the fact that of the diversity of this group and the and then going into what are the main themes of this report.
Yeah, I think that sounds perfect, Nick, and really appreciate you taking that step on behalf of the council, and look forward to seeing what you come up with, and certainly available to help along the way too. So
Well, I'll get you a
appreciate-
draft this afternoon if you want it, and Aaron, you can look it over if you want before I send it to the Sean and Heather, and then you can push it out. You want to do it that way?
Sounds great. Yeah.
Okay.
So Sean, one more thing I just wanted to add was, as we start getting called for interviews and things, we're all going to be asked how we thought the process went and how we feel about all this stuff. And so I just want you all to be mindful that we do have different perspectives, and it's okay to have those perspectives. And the only thing that we were limited by on what we agreed upon at the very beginning was that we will not say that we don't agree with things that we came to consensus on, because clearly we did agree with them. So, but that's going to be a big question. It's how do you feel about how it went, and how do you feel, and do you think FWP is going to take these under consideration, or if you just wasted a year of your life? So just things to think about, because I've already been asked some of those questions.
Yeah, thanks, Trina. And I think that is something that everyone should be thinking about. How would you answer those questions, and what do you think the key points to communicate are? And I don't know that it's appropriate for us or anyone to help through that, but I think be prepared for those kind of questions is really critical. So thanks for bringing that forward, Trina.
One more thing, Sean. I mean, I maybe to a fault, I tend to be in the press a lot. And so I'm wondering if there are people on this council who haven't been approached yet who want to be out there. Other people don't want to be, but Heath or Greg, Jonathan, I don't know. I'm thinking of, because there's already been quite a bit of press over our process, and once we have a final report, there will be, I would expect, a much longer story on what it says. So.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So that kind of gets into some of the next steps. So for anyone who is not comfortable playing that role of speaking directly to the press, are there people that you want to point to, or other people on the council who are more comfortable in that role, that you would ask to maybe step in and help you out in that instance? So Nick, it sounds like you're comfortable playing that role. Maybe offline we can kind of just take stock of where people are and get a sense of who's comfortable, not comfortable, and just ask that people take it upon themselves to think about, if you're not comfortable, who would you feel comfortable speaking on your behalf or representing the council in front of that particular audience or opportunity? Does that make sense in terms of an approach? I don't want to limit anyone's ability to talk to the press, but want to think ahead to just be prepared for that. And then looking ahead to really what are our next steps. So we've got this event on September 1st now, where the council will hand off the recommendations and the report to the governor's office, and just really grateful to the governor for carving out that time, for really honoring and validating all the work that you guys have done over the last year to come up with these recommendations, and to take a good look at them and see, what are things that might be immediately actionable or that might come up for consideration. So I think it's fantastic that they're making that time to both honor the process, but also the product that you guys have created together. I'm going to invite Charlie to just share a little bit about what we know so far about that meeting on September 1st. And as he's doing that, it sounds like there will be an opportunity for a couple of the council members to have a speaking role, to present, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to the governor, a few high-level thoughts about what the council processes look like, what the report looks like, and kind of what we hope, or what you all hope as a council ends up happening as a result of the dialogue that you've had over the last year. So if anyone's interested in playing that role, or you'd like to nominate another council member to play that role, be thinking about that as we hear a little bit more about that September 1st meeting. So Charlie, can you jump on and just share what we know right now?
Sure. I'm just pausing because right when you were indicating that you were going to call on me, my dogs just erupted in the background. So with luck, we'll get through this without having to listen to my Aussies serenade us. So yeah, the information is still a little bit scanty, you guys. Echoing what Sean just said, though, just a lot of excitement coming out of the governor's office in anticipation of the final recommendations, and really wanting to put a spotlight on this group's work. So with that in mind, that what I do know is, of course, the date's set on September 1, and we're roughly looking at the time period between 11 and 4 on that date. And I'm going to make an assumption here that likely the time with the governor would probably start around 11, and he's got about just a little over an hour time he can spend with us, and then that would give us still some time afterwards to have lunch together and visit casually and go on about our way and be to be able to get there and back in one day. And that we're working on the location right now. We've got a high potential of a location, and I'll just leave it at that right now. But it'd be somewhere in the vicinity of Helena. And then to the actual format of the event, I think Sean alluded to this as well, that the idea would be the council would provide a brief synopsis of what is in their recommendation. So this does speak right to what you were talking about previously, having some talking points to deliver. And then the governor would likely spend some time asking some questions and talk a little bit about what lies ahead in the future in terms of potential for using these recommendations. It would be an event attended by the council members. It'd be likely there's going to be some media presence there. And what else can I say? That's I guess the gist of what I know at this time, Sean, council members. But if you have any questions, I can try to answer those, or if you have any input or suggestions you want me to share with Patrick Holmes out of the governor's office, I can certainly do that.
Hey, Charlie, I just assume we're going to be still trying to figure out the whole social distance thing, mask thing, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely, Aaron. Thanks for mentioning that. And so that brings to mind a couple of things. One, we're looking at an outdoor facility location to help with that. And then, of course, we'd have to comply with whatever directives are in place regarding social distancing and masks, et cetera. And that also speaks to the size of the group that's there. And by the time you add up the council members and facilitators, et cetera, I mean, it'll be a fairly intimate event as opposed to a large gathering.
Yeah,
So
thanks,
Charlie,
Aaron.
one thing.
Oh, go ahead, Darren.
Sorry. So one thing I talked to Heather a couple times these past weeks, and I was kind of thinking about if this happened, and I got to thinking that one of the very first thing this council came together on and really came in strong push and resolution and recommendation was that we should figure out a day to celebrate the conservation and the path the grizzly bear's done with both public and private lands. And well, I would almost be a good time for, I don't know if the governor can pull that off in a day, where education and various things could be highlighted. And that could really be the first thing that's implemented from our plan. If he could pull that off in that time frame or something like that to say, hey, I think that's a great idea for all the reasons that they're talking about, and make that as one of the first action items. So I was thinking about that, and I threw it out to Heather, and she wanted me to make sure I brought it up to the whole council and made comment to it.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. I think that's exactly what the governor's office will be doing, is taking a look at these. And if you guys had guidance on priority items or near-term items that you think might rise to that level of being immediately implementable, that's great information to pass forward. So thanks for bringing that up. Any other questions or thoughts on this first meeting? I know, as Charlie said, we're still figuring out some of the logistics and details, but that was a nice overview of kind of the overall expectations, and we'll certainly be sharing more information as we have it, both in terms of structure and venue. The question, go ahead, Charlie.
We'll formally get a head count, but just maybe by way of just informally asking folks right now if they're planning to attend.
Yeah, so if you're planning to attend, can you just go ahead and raise your hand or put yes in the chat box, and then we'll get a sense of who's there. So, all right, so people are throwing it in the chat box. That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's probably a good way to handle it too, Sean. Thank you.
And certainly if something comes up and you can't make it, we'll want to know that too. The related question then is, if there is this opportunity to have one or two people share some opening remarks, recognizing that all of you will have a chance to engage in dialogue and in the Q&A, is there one or two people that you guys would like to nominate, or one or two people that want to raise their hand to play that role? I saw maybe, was it Trina that suggested maybe Jonathan and Aaron? Anyone want to second those ideas or advance other ideas? Aaron's deflecting.
I generally talk too much, so, but I'd be happy to do it.
All right. So there's a few names that are showing up here in the chat box. So Jonathan, Nick, Aaron, Cole, all your names have come up. Maybe as the next step, what Heather and I can do is follow up with that group of the 4 of you and just check in with you and identify 1 or 2 of you to really represent the group. Yeah.
And so, Sean, would you want us to draft our remarks, or would that come from you and Heather, or would it come from the governor's office? I mean,
it would come from you all. So this is your chance to essentially share the report and build off of some of the talking points that you're going to put together today, Nick. But if there's anything else you want to share about the process, you know, one way to look at it is the 4 of you guys could potentially put together some notes, and then 1 or 2 of you could present those on behalf of the council, something like that. But we don't want to represent your voice. That's really for you guys to share your thoughts with the governor at this point, and hand off that report and share any thoughts you have either about what it took to get to this point or what your expectations or hopes are moving forward. And thanks, Annie. Glad you were able to join. Does that help, Nick? Any other questions?
no, that's good. I mean, I could even prepare, write a short speech, basic, talkers.
Cool. Yeah, I think that'd be helpful, just something to start from. And then if others want to be a part of that process or add perspectives, that would be great. And then we'll still need to identify that person who's actually going to deliver the content. And then the only other thing that I think is on the horizon right now is that there is an upcoming Environmental Quality Council meeting in September 9th and 10th. And my understanding with that is that there is a placeholder on the agenda for the council's recommendations to be presented to the council members. And right now, my understanding is that there's still some negotiation about, who and how and all of that. But what would be helpful if people could start thinking about now is who from the council might be interested and available to attend that council meeting and be either on hand to answer questions from the council or potentially present to the council. So that's September 9th and 10th. And on that one, I would suggest that maybe we ask people who have some familiarity with EQC in the process, or who are interested and available to do that, to raise their hand, and then we can again circulate an email out to everyone just confirming who that is and what the details look like. And I see Nick is willing to do that as well, and that he'll be in attendance in any case. Trina's available. I think Lawrence has previously expressed some interest in being a part of those discussions. If anyone else would like to, please just let us know. And Charlie, I'm going to turn to you again for just coordination and next steps there. Is that something that you can help out with, or is that something that you'd like us to work directly with the EQC staff on?
Yeah, we can help out with that, Sean. I think there'll be some coordination that has to happen with FWP and the EQC staffers on the agenda. But I know we've already had some exchange with the staff about that. So we'll share information as we get it. And I think what you suggested is good, to be ready to go as far as some people that can physically be there. And then whether that means actually presenting or being available to answer questions from the council, Environmental Quality Council members, that makes sense to me.
That sounds good. And do we know, Charlie, if that's going to be an in-person meeting or is it virtual?
Virtual. I'm pretty sure it'll be a Zoom meeting or a virtual platform.
And then Trina has just put a good question in here about what if folks get invites from a specific council, board, organization, whatever. I think that's probably going to happen. There are a number of different organizations out there that are interested in your work. There will be a number of upcoming conferences where people will want to hear about it. I guess I'm curious to hear what you guys think is best. My sense is that what we could do together as a group is really come up with those talking points, and then just ask all of you to take each of those invitations on a case-by-case basis. If you feel like you're well positioned to be able to be responsive and attend and speak on behalf of the council, as well as share your own perspective and insights, that you should feel empowered to do that. If you'd like us to do more in terms of helping coordinate some of those activities, let us know that too. And perhaps what we can do is just keep the communication going among council members as those opportunities arise and extend additional invitations for folks that might want to engage. Trina, does that get to your question, or is there something in particular you'd like to bring up? So that does it. Okay.
Sean, I would encourage everyone on this council, if you get those invites, to talk about it. I mean, the last thing people want to see are, government reports that sit on shelves and collect dust. I mean, this is, and everybody should, if you get invited, I would encourage all of you in your communities, in your trade organizations around the state, whatever. And I guess I think that's really good for the work we did.
Well, and to add to Nick's comment, if you are getting a specific request from somewhere, it's probably because you're already involved with that group, or because they've followed this process from the beginning and you're specifically the person that they want to talk to.
I guess the related question is, do you all want to know about each other's invitations and speaking engagements? And would it be interesting, helpful for you all just to send a note out to the other council members when those things happen? Or is that not something that you're curious about, or is it just too much work to keep track of all those things? So I'd be curious to know your answer to that. Would it be helpful? Would you enjoy hearing what other people are up to in terms of those speaking engagements and outreach efforts?
I think it might be good for people to know, just so that if they're interested, they can make an effort to take part. But really, I don't think it's anybody's responsibility to, I don't think we need to approve people doing it, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Everybody, I think, is looking out for the best interest of the council, and I think we can do that. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks, Heath. I think that's well said. And I think what would be nice then is, as those opportunities come forward, just maybe shooting an email out to the group and saying, hey, I've got this opportunity to talk to group X or group Y and wanted to let you know. And if there's an opportunity to tune in, maybe send a link to that meeting for people that are interested in attending. I think that'd just be a nice way to do it. Okay, well, coming up here at the end of the hour, I think we've got some clarity now on next steps. So any content for the document will be finalized by Friday, pending a couple of those items where we're looking for support teams help and staff help to finalize. And then next week, what we'll do is just finalize the formatting of the document and prepare that to hand off to the governor's office. We'll be continuing to build out the content and logistics for the September 1st meeting and share updates for those as we move forward. We've got Nick on tap to present some preliminary talking points for all of us to consider, so that as we move from pulling this report together to thinking about outreach and implementation opportunities, that we all have that opportunity to kind of talk to the same key points about the report. And then a lot of the conversation is really focused on adding your own voice and perspective to that. And so certainly that is something we want you to continue to do, because you all have your own communities and you speak really well to those communities. And I think continuing those relationships has been foundational to the work that's occurred over the last year. So we'll continue to look for those. If people want to engage in the EQC meeting, please let us know, send us an email, and we'll find out more information about how and when to be involved in that. And Aaron, yes, we will lean on FWP and Heather and I to do the final formatting. So you guys don't need to do that. Robin's asking about a final edited copy before September 1st. We'll make sure that we send that out so that people have a PDF of that as well. What we're trying to do is not change the content, but really focus on making sure the formatting is clear and consistent, and it has a nice looking cover page. So I don't know that anything will change, but what we want to do is make sure that we just present your work in as nice a way as possible.
Yeah, Sean, if I could just add to that, just make sure there's no trepidation there. I mean, I think what you and I and Heather talked about is it'd be things like checking for consistent font. I mean, headers, just giving it that polished look of a final council report. And, even thinking about wordsmithing or editing, that to me, that's at this stage, you guys have done that. And if we found a typo, we'd probably fix it, but that's really the extent of it. If that helps.
Yeah. No, exactly, Charlie. And that's exactly what we want to do, is just take this product over the finish line, but not ask you guys to do the more tedious work of formatting and final typo editing and putting a cover page on it and that kind of stuff. So we'll take that on and make sure that we have a nice document to share with the governor and with one another for that September 1st meeting. Any other questions out there, or final thoughts before we jump off? Hearing none, just want to thank everyone again for a terrific year together. Really, this is the culmination of a lot of terrific work and thinking and hard work and sometimes difficult process and understanding to get to where you are. I'm incredibly proud of the work you've done together and the final product. I think that Trina's comment about gift cards and jackets really speaks to the humor that you guys have infused throughout this process. You've connected as Montanans and as people really working toward common ground and finding that common goal. And you've done an amazing job not only doing that, but really connecting as fellow Montanans and finding humor and finding insight and connection to one another throughout that process. That's one of the things that's really stood out to me. It's been some of the comments you've made to each other about just understanding one another and walking a mile in each other's shoes. And I think that's really contributed to this final document. So thanks so much for all the good work today and throughout the year. And we'll be in touch with next steps and looking forward to seeing as many of you that can make it on September 1st. Thanks to the public for joining us today too. It's been great to have you along for all of this conversation, and it's been just an integral part of the entire conversation. So thanks for tuning in and being part of this and supporting and providing guidance and input. All right, folks, that's all for today. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll be in touch.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you for your leadership and Heather's leadership.
Thanks, everyone.